Every single person that I've interviewed on the podcast, every neurologist, immunologist, cardiologist has gone back to, if we had sound nutrition, the patient's opportunity for wellness is 10x. I mean, period, no doubt about it. So we're dovetailing in this really important conversation because sometimes we're looking for a cause or a diagnosis, we're looking for forms of treatment, but foundationally, nobody can get well on bad nutrition. Welcome to the Hope and Help podcast, where we talk about science and science-based tools for fatigue and chronic illness. I'm Haylie Pomroy, #1 New York Times best-selling author of the Fast Metabolism Diet and the Assistant Director of the Integrative Medicine Program at the Institute for Neuro-Immune Medicine. Today, we're going to talk about veterans and their unique nutritional needs. I am very excited that I am joined by a dear friend and colleague of mine, Dan Rice. Dan is a First Lieutenant United States Army veteran. Dan, thank you for being here. And first and foremost, thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate the work you guys are doing over there at the Institute to help the veterans. I think it's magnificent that that you guys are putting a team together with Dr. Klimas and Jimmy Arocho to actually help people that have been forgotten for a while. It's awesome. And if I could be a little part of that, to be a coach and assist them with getting their metabolisms back in order, oh my God, I'd be honored.
Well, we're honored to have you. And speaking of that, you're going to be with the group at our next Shield MECFS conference, and you're one of our speakers, and you're going to be talking to everybody about kind of unique nutritional needs that we find in veterans in general, but especially those that are dealing maybe with some aspect of chronic illness like Gulf War injury or something of that nature. So Dan, I want to start by saying, tell me a little bit about your journey into the military. Tell me about your family.
Okay. My journey into the military, I guess it started when I was a little boy. I was always playing with Army men and tanks and, little models. And we also had a lot of people in the area I grew up in, Detroit, that were veterans from World War II. And a lot of them were disabled, and the older men in the area, they could just do chores like mow lawns or sharpen knives or something of that nature. They had a lot of exposure to the neighborhood, and they would teach us kids right from wrong, and we appreciated that. And one of my close friends, his dad was in the Army, and he was disabled. He got hit with a grenade in Germany.
Oh my goodness.
He had a treasure trove of war booty, as you call it, and to look in that Foot Locker and see all that stuff, I was just, oh my God, it was real. It's just not John Wayne movies. This stuff is real. And
real heroes, yes. You guys are real heroes, yes.
Right. So I think the catalyst for me going into the military was when Iran took the hostages, and there was a lot of banter going back and forth. And I was like, you know what? I have to do something about this. So I joined. And then a couple months later, they turned over the hostage, and I had 2.5 years left on my enlistment.
What about your family? I know that you've got siblings, and were they involved in the armed services?
Oh, yeah. 6 brothers and 2 sisters, and all 6 boys were on active duty at one time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Your poor mom and dad.
Right. Actually, I don't think they were that disappointed, because we were off the food bill.
Oh, that's true. That's valid.
They probably had some extra money in their pocket to go to Vegas or something like that.
That's very true. So Dan, you now in this part of your life, you're dedicating your time and energy and effort around nutrition. And was there something in your life that brought you to value that? Or I know that we've now watched you, which has been really cool, marrying the passion of helping veterans and the passion of nutrition together. But how did nutrition come into your world?
Well, my late wife, Jennifer, she was interested in your program, and she actually, I think, went to like a weekend coaching session before there were coaches, but you were just kind of educating the population. So she was she was really enthused by your program and changed our diets. And so that was like the catalyst for me to get going. After she passed, I always knew the nutritional aspect was important, and I would see your diet books and all that stuff, and just walk by, and it's like one day I picked it up and started reading it. Like, holy smoke! And then, but the really strange event that happened to me is there was this one lady I was friends on Facebook that I went to grade school with, and she knew of Jenny's situation. She was in the prayer group, and I get a private message in July of 2023. It just says, out of the blue, you're going to be a healer in your second half of life. And I'm like, okay, this lady's loony. But she said, no, you will see signs and lots of signs. And I'm like, okay, sure. And then on December 18th, 2023, she sent another message and says, have you seen signs for step 1? And I'm like, all right, lady, what the hell? And I said, I texted her back and I said, I'm not sure what you're referring to. And it says, your future business endeavor, your guardian angel. I was like, oh my gosh, this, I got to process this. And then I said, this is crazy, but I just got off the phone with Ty, one of the Haylie staff, setting up my educational journey. And so I was like, okay, this is meant to be. And one thing I have to say is my wife would always say, you're not listening. Well, honey, I'm listening now.
Wow.
And I'm just so happy that I'll have an opportunity to learn and grow. And the more I learn and grow, the more I can assist people on their journeys to heal their metabolism, lose weight, or heal from whatever is ailing them. So.
That's amazing. That's a wonderful story. And what an advocate you're being. And I know Jenny personally, and I know that this would be very exciting for her to watch you evolve like this. It would be very exciting. And it's been exciting for your family. I love how you are helping veterans. I love how you are looking at kind of those unique nutritional needs in that space. Let's dig into that a little bit. What types of experience or exposures do you see that veterans, are exposed to that maybe the rest of the population isn't? I always say that the veteran is expected, or the individual in the services are expected to perform like a professional athlete, but be fed like, from a truck stop, right? The nutritional input of a professional athlete is that there's nutritionists and supplements and massage therapists and acupuncturists, physical therapists and physiatrists. And yet the individuals, the young men and women that serve are not nourished in that way. What types of exposures do you see causing added stressors to these individuals?
Oh my gosh, you have poor nutrition be at the top of the list. And
what do you mean? MREs? Aren't MREs yummy?
Oh my gosh. The only thing good about MREs is when you go to the field, it's like, okay, now I know I don't have to go to the bathroom for about 3 or 4 days.
So a little bit of GI distress, I understand, correct?
Yeah. But
so they have poor nutrition under stress.
Poor nutrition under stress, and that's not a good combination for a fast metabolism.
Yeah, or for anybody. Yeah.
And just the whole foods and the nutrients, and that's out the window.
Right.
I mean, when you go back and you go in the chow hall, you get, I don't know, a lot of fried foods, and they'll have vegetables and stuff. They do make an effort, but you have to make a bigger effort on your end to bring the supplements into your diet that you
Absolutely.
need.
So we also see a significant stress on the immune system. We were talking the other day about exposure to toxic environment, to additional vaccines. Do you remember did you have any exposure when you were serving?
Environmentally, yes. I was exposed to mad cow disease over in Germany, and I did not have any inclination that I was exposed to it until I went to give blood for my late wife, Jenny. And over at the City of Hope, they sent me down. They asked me a series of questions about, were you in the military? Where'd you serve? What unit? And they just, okay, you've been exposed. And I was like, wow, that's nice of them to tell me now. But in doing research for this podcast, I found out that they took that restriction off. We can't
they did
blood.
Oh, okay. Wow. So it was a time period and where you were serving that they were worried about that exposure.
Correct.
Wow. That's crazy. What about individuals that are in the military? Like, I know that a lot of times when they're deployed, there's a lot of vaccines that they're given at one setting that maybe it's life-saving or life-affirming, but that it's just a lot of stress on the body in one setting. Do you remember going through basic training?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I can only speak to my basic training. I'm sure that if you're going to war and combat, it's a whole different animal because you know where the theater you're going to and all the intricacies of those areas. When I was in basic training, oh my gosh, we had like 2 or 3 shot events where they would just line the soldiers up, and they'd have 6 people on each side of you, and you just walk through and you get one, and recover. And then the next couple of days you go through it again.
Right.
I mean, we didn't even question it. It was just, okay, I'm military. That's it. I'm doing it.
During that time period, was there also added stress, lack of sleep?
Oh, you bet. During basic training, oh my God, you're constantly getting yelled at. The only time you have to relax is when you sleep, and you're up late cleaning and getting ready for the next day, and the next morning at 4:30, the drill sergeants come through and wake you up in not so nice of a manner, kicking garbage cans down the middle of the aisle, and then you run to the chow hall. Stress. They give you only like 5 to 7 minutes to eat, and you got drill sergeants yelling at you, just swallow it and bring it up later and chew it. Okay, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And then when you get back, if you've already made your bed, and then they'll go ahead and throw everything that you've got in your wall locker out if it's not to their specifications, and tear up your bed and remake it. And yeah, there's a lot of stress. And then you're constantly training, you're learning new stuff, how to march. What they do is they break you down as an individual and build you up as a unit.
Right. Right.
So yeah, there's a lot of stress going down in the breakdown period, and then there's a lot of stress going when they build you up. But when you get to that level, it's like, oh my gosh, we made it. We're in sync. We can march correctly. We can have a little extra time in the chow hall. Stress is part of the game.
So in individuals that are in the military and are now retired, we always seem to see they have an added demand for, and I'm just going to say an individual that had served their time, but I want to get into Gulf War injury in a minute, and soldiers, men and women that have had a lot of stress and exposure. They have very unique nutritional needs, but in general, we seem to see like a larger demand for protein to support the structure. And it's almost like when I see athletes or people that say, I played a sport in college, and now my metabolism has slowed down as I'm less physical or less active. I get a lot of individuals that are out of the service now that come in and they go, I just don't recognize my body anymore. I used to be fit and trim and lean, and that's all changing. Are you seeing that in your practice?
I have one particular customer right now that fits that bill, and he's like, okay, Dan, I got to get back on it and let's do it. And he's got a great attitude about it. He's like, I'm dropping the coffee, I'm dropping the booze, I need to get back into shape. He happens to be a deputy sheriff too, so I'm like, yeah, okay, let's do it.
Yeah, this is important. Absolutely. So in your coaching, first of all, I know a lot of people that are military, they can reach out, they can, or have done their time of service, they can reach out. How do people get a hold of you?
You can contact me at my email address. It's dan.rice, RICE 60 at yahoo.com.
That's awesome. Okay, you guys, only contact him to like schedule a meeting. Don't just ask him a million questions. We have communities for that. And also, Dan, you're going to be speaking, and so we'll make that video available about about how we can support a body that's been in service. I want to jump just a minute for what the conference is about, but also what we work a lot with at the Institute, which is Desert Shield, Gulf War, GWI, Gulf War injury. In those particular clients, and people ask us a lot, why do we marry that with MECFS, myalgic encephalomyelitis, chronic fatigue syndrome? There's a neuroinflammatory response and an immune system modulation response that seems to be very similar. The underpinnings of both GWI and MECFS seem to have a lot of similarity. I know that you're speaking at this event, and so what added stressors do you see individuals that serve during those times in those environments having exposure to?
Okay, so you have the toxic exposure.
Yes.
They were exposed to sarin gas, and that happened when the U.S. military blew up a facility that warehoused that, and there's like 150,000 people that were exposed to it. Soldiers, airmen, and Marines.
Right.
And so they have that exposure. And then you have the poor nutritional aspect, and
the burn pits.
Pits and the oil wells on fire. There was just so much. These people were exposed to so much in such a short period of time, and they came back and they all knew something was going on. But through research, through your institute, and the time, treasure, and talent that they're spending over there to help these people get fixed is just absolutely phenomenal and wonderful. So their metabolisms need to be repaired.
Right.
And so we have, through your program, we have ways of doing that. You can take a detox, you can do a 28-day or do both and try to get your metabolism back in order. We do it by phases. You want to unwind and unstress the adrenals, and then the second phase is you want to unlock the stored fat in the muscles, and the third phase is you just want to burn it and get it out of your system.
Right. I love that. And I love that you have a very strategic rebuild, rest, and restore program in your nutrition. I love that because in anybody that's dealing with chronic illness or toxic injury, there needs to be that time where we can rebuild, we can detoxify, but we can restore and replenish. I'm just going to touch on a couple of nutrients that I've seen you utilize in your practice. And then I just, if people have questions, if they want to reach out to you specifically, we are very excited that you're going to come and speak for us and do this work and help get a nutrition and supplement plan put together for individuals that are dealing with chronic illness, chronic inflammatory disorders, and inflammation. So Dan, a lot of individuals that are dealing with toxic injury that have tremendous stress in their body, where their nervous system and their immune system has gone out of balance, I've seen you add some supplementation in, specifically, magnesiums, but you use a very strategic magnesium. Tell me what kind and why.
Oh, it's magnesium malate.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically, it helps muscle development, pain, migraines, depression, fatigue. And we use other supplements too, like Turin, specifically to help the heart and soothe muscles, nervous system. And it's a performance amino acid.
Yeah, they call it the performance amino acid because it helps all of our structure, right? Taurine helps. It's like kind of that building block or that catalyst. I like that you use that strategically. What else do you like to see people on?
GABA specifically helps sleep and regulates the blood pressure. And
nice.
L-theanine, it helps sleep as well and relaxation, focus, memory, and cognition.
That's great. And I know that getting sleep where we can rest and restore is so critically important in getting the body back into to or towards a homeostasis. So that's nice to see those strategic supplements in. So Dan, let me ask you, when we're talking about veterans' unique nutritional needs, how many times a day do you like to see people eat? Are you like all into fasting and nobody should eat until 3 o'clock or what?
No. In our program, we have to diet. Did I eat today? And
I love that.
You're going to eat so much, you're going to get sick of it. Not really. It is a lot of food at first. You have to eat 3 meals and 2 snacks a day. So you're eating every 2 to 3 hours. And
so it's more of the grazing approach.
It's the grazing approach, but it's, oh my God. After a week, you're just going to go, this is really nice and soothing, and your mood's going to change, and you're going to go, well, where did that energy come from?
I love that.
Sit here on the couch. I got to get up and do something.
I love that.
That's your reward. And realize it, though. You have to realize that this is the reward. This is what I've been striving for my whole dietary career, and it's here, and I'm not going to throw it away. I'm not going to let that beer fall in my mouth and take 4 days to get it out of my system. I work too hard for that. Just take it to the next level. Add your and you have to be exercising too on this program. And each specific phase has a targeted exercise. Like phase 1 is cardio, phase 2 is strength and tone, and phase 3 is like you kind of relax. You want to get a massage. You just kind of take it easy, but you're still doing something.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's stress reducing.
Nice. There's so many rewards on this program. It's phenomenal.
That's great. So one thing that and I've never served, so I can say this from a total outsider perspective, is oftentimes veterans aren't the first to get in line to ask for help. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I think, they've been let down a lot by what has had to happen in advocacy for individuals, like our SHIELD conference and GWI, Gulf War Injury, Gulf War Syndrome, all of that, and the advocacy and the strength in advocacy that's had to happen. But we're trying to get nutrition. Every single person that I've interviewed on the podcast, every neurologist, immunologist, cardiologist has gone back to, if we had sound nutrition, the patient's opportunity for wellness is 10x. Period, no doubt about it. So we're dovetailing in this really important conversation because sometimes we're looking for a cause or a diagnosis. We're looking for forms of treatment, but foundationally, nobody can get well on bad nutrition.
Yes. And if you've gone out like 3 months of poor nutrition, you're going to have a bad gut biome.
Right.
It treats 90% of your gut biome, and there's no drugs that can reinculcate it. It has to be done with food.
Right. There's nothing that can do that. You're absolutely right. I love that. And only 3 months. I don't know how long basic training was at the time, but I know that many people are in the military much longer than 3 months. Right. And even in the best case scenario, there's a lot of stress and a lot of exposure.
I was going to point out that it's just not the military member that as he or she may be the point of stress for the family, but it's all inclusive. If you have an injured service member, well, who do you think's taking care of them? The family.
Oh, that's valid.
So there's so much stress in the family, and they have to be careful too. If they want to eat comfort food all the time, they're going to put on the weight. Their body's stressed. Because as a caregiver, you get stressed out. And so what your body's going to do is everything coming in, it's just going to go, okay, I'm going to put that in the fat cells.
Right. Goes into storage mode.
Storage mode. And then you don't want to work out and you're just, woe is me. And it's a bad situation to be in the first place that somebody's hurt. But it compounds when the family's hurting too. Now, it creates an opportunity for the service person to be a caregiver to the caregiver.
A leader also.
A leader, yeah. So there's a lot of value that they bring to the table instead of being just taken care of all the time. Like, honey, I get this stuff. Let's do it. And it's going to bring them closer together. So my philosophy is, and I've gone through a lot of stuff in my life. If you look for the good in a situation, you're going to find it. It's there. You
Nice.
just have to have the eyes to see it. And just take a step back. I've lost my wife 4 years ago. I'm a cancer survivor too. I've been through the gamut, and I just got done taking care of my mother-in-law, who just recently passed a few weeks ago.
I'm sorry.
So, there's a lot of things that go on in life, and we don't always ask for them and don't want them, but they're there. But like I said, there's a lot of good in every situation. You just have to look for it and find it and stay positive. It's there.
Yeah. And be receptive to help. We're here to help you.
Be receptive to help, especially the military folks. They're so used to being in a unit that anything outside of the unit coming in is like, well, they have to scope it out and check it out. But I think myself, from being a veteran, I'll be more. I'm obviously more welcoming, but I can relate at a different level.
I agree, and
I'm
I think
looking
that's
forward to that.
Yeah. And I think that's why so many veterans turn to you for nutritional advice, lifestyle advice, and both inspiration and aspiration. So I just want to thank you. Dan, one more time, how do people get a hold of you?
My email address is dan.rice, RICE, 60@yahoo.com.
That's awesome. And it is so wonderful. All of our colleagues love having you as a nutrition coach. I love that your niche has become helping veterans. I know that you also get a lot of other people that ask for your services as well. And I love that you're willing to serve. But it's really important, I think, that any individual dealing with any kind of chronic illness, viral reactivation or viral-based illness or toxic injury, that they feed their bodies and they don't strip their bodies even more by doing some crazy diet or poor nutrition or stimulant or something of that nature. So I commend you for what you're doing. I thank you for your service. Please come back on the podcast, and I cannot wait to hear your presentation.
Well, thank you so much.
For our conference. Yeah, it's going to be great. So thank you, and we'll talk soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.